Hello, beloveds. I am so honored and delighted and grateful to welcome beloved Angela Mars. Welcome, love. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Oh, I'm so happy. And it's like we just get to hang out and chat. So, except everyone gets to hear what we're chatting about. So, anyway, I'm going to get like straight into the juicy, all the good stuff. So, you've been through the whole feng shui master certification. You've been through the whole year on the Celtic wheel, and like you've deep dived into. And I know that you're deeply intuitive and really gifted in this work. But let's just go back to what you were doing, and then what first of all brought you into wanting to learn about feng shui to start with. Tell us about that.
Gosh, I haven't thought about that for a few years,
Yeah,
but I
because
think it's interesting, to think back and ponder these things. And I think for me, I just always had this connection that or this awareness that my environment was affecting my mood and my energy. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but I had that knowing, I had that inner knowing that when I take the time to create a space that I love, then I'm happier and I'm more joyful and I can come home and feel into that sanctuary. And even when I was, you know, I think back to when I was in college or grad school or just all these different times throughout life, even when I had no money to go out and buy anything nice or new, I would go to a thrift store and then I would paint furniture. And I just always had this inclination to make things my own and make it not just beautiful, but unique to me. Right. And so I think that is how I kind of eventually wove my way into learning about feng shui. It was just a natural process, as if it
I
was.
love that. I love that. It was just this awareness. And you said that so beautifully, like how our environment, our homes, where we spend all our time, affects our mood. Like, I mean, I know I get really grumpy when the house is a mess and the clutter is built up. And like it really, whereas when everything's gorgeous and clean and organized, you're just like, oh, it feels so much better. So I mean, we could talk all day about that anyway. But then I also know you're so creative, and I mean, you're a poetess, and I mean, like every pore oozes out creativity out of you. So I know that, and so I love that you were reclaiming pieces. Like even back, as you're saying, before you had the money, perhaps to buy the pieces now that you do, but you created them yourself, and then just how good that felt. So I love that. It's like bringing your own essence, your own energy, your own creativity, your own gifts, but also creating that flow. So, okay, so you made all these kind of, you wove all that together. Then you were like, okay, well, I want to learn this on a deeper level. Is that what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, okay, I can look back and see how all of these pieces were coming together to create this, unified version of me, or puzzle pieces that were kind of starting to fit together. Like you said, it's such a gift to look back and see myself living in a tiny studio apartment with nothing, right? Because I have so many blessings like that I think give me this gift to be able to work with anyone. It doesn't matter where you are in your life. It doesn't matter. You don't have to go out and buy anything. It's really learning to work with what you have and where you are, and that is the beauty in in feng shui, and in bringing that energy into its own essence, just by connecting deeper into yourself, and then connecting that awareness in your space.
I love that. Love that. That's so beautiful. So then, so you really got kind of the energy flow, you got bringing your own essence in, creating beauty, how that all enhanced your mood. So then, as you started to learn deeper into kind of like the numbers and, the classical feng shui and all the other bits, did that kind of tie things together for you, or how did all those pieces of the puzzle feel as well?
What I love about the classical aspect of feng shui is it ties things in a little bow, or it helps connect the dots in your mind. You're like, gosh, I knew something was just not quite right, or something was a little bit off. So you can bring it's interesting because you say the word classical and you think about the numbers and it sounds so official, very, and it is. But
Yeah,
also, the juxtaposition of that is, to me, it brought in an element of play into the practice of, oh, okay, intuitively I was feeling this, and now I can see how that plays on the blueprint, of the house, and how it all fits together.
I love that. And so when you started kind of bringing it in on a deeper level, did you notice shifts in your life? Like, oh, I mean, how did it affect it as you started to kind of learn about it? So it was kind of either remembrance or reawakening or just learning this new information. And then, so how did that affect you personally, professionally, in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely started feeling changes in my life, and I especially took notice to things I hadn't thought about before. Like, I had a knee injury, and I'm like, how is this connected to feng shui? Because so often people don't think about that in the physical body, but there is a connection. And so I was able to make some remedies to that, and now my knee's been, they told me I needed a knee replacement, but my knee is healed on its own. It's gonna be
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah. And so, I mean, I think it's a combination of many things that have helped that, but obviously our things in our home are reflect in our body, things like that I had not thought of before, definitely came into fruition. And I think that helps me really have a full scope of how to approach something if I'm helping someone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So are you now practicing feng shui, and tell us about that?
I am, and it's interesting because I've in the past year and a half, I bought an old farmhouse and decided to move out into the countryside and just kind of start a new life. And it has been incredibly challenging. And it's pushed the boundaries of what I thought, or how I thought I would practice feng shui with my clients. And for a while I was, doubting myself. I was like, what have I done? What is going on? But what I've come into, kind of as the year has ended, is all of these challenges have been an incredible gift, because the energy in this home was so heavy and stuck. And the people that lived here before me lived here for 40 years and they did not want to leave. So they were just hanging on. And I was coming into that feeling on this land. And it really has challenged me in a beautiful way. Like, for example, this place is a wind tunnel. It's very, very windy. My fence has fallen down, just so many strange things. And then so I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? How do I utilize feng shui and shift how I look at this? Well, I walked outside one day and and I'm looking at the trees, and there's so many limbs on the ground from the wind, just like a sea of tree limbs. I mean, it's really fascinating. And at first I was like, oh my goodness, and then I started to realize that everything on this land is very strong, because the wind brings this element of purification and strength. So
Mm.
what stands here in clarity and just an unwavering strength. And you can see that in the trees. We had a ice on the ground, and the next day after it melted, in the middle of winter, there are still dandelions. They're
Oh,
just it's a resilient
yeah.
land that I've come into. So it's almost like I had to be initiated into this, element, to be fully and wholly welcomed on this land. So often we think something's a negative, but when we take a deeper look, we can see the elements are always helping us. And
Mm.
I tried to burn some of the limbs from some of these trees. They're have a lot of river birch.
Well, what tree? What they're birch trees?
And the limbs don't even want to burn. They're so hardy. And it's just
Sovereignty at its best, right there, huh?
yes. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. Like this really is a gift. This really is a gift. And I think this experience really, I know this experience, it will help me with my clients really, really connect in a different way with the elements on the property than I had
Absolutely.
been able to see before.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a serious soul agreement that you have with that land, with that home, with the ancestors of the land. Your ancestors now connected with the land. I mean, I know it's been a real journey for you, but it also was a huge journey of expansion as well and trust. I mean, because you really shifted things up when you bought this property, and it was a very, very brave move as well. Well, so what I'd love to do, I'd love to change gear a little bit. So because basically you've always understood energy flow, you've really always understood what feels good in a space. When you took the training, you learned on a deeper level, and now you've got the tools, you're helping clients. But then you took the Priestess Awakening Celtic Wheel of the Year. And it was, I know throughout that year that you got guidance to get this property. So I'd love to change gears now. And what called you into learning about the Celtic traditions, the priestess, the goddess traditions, and what was it within that activated you going, I'm going to buy land and property in this home and I'm going to so share. I'd love, love, love to hear about that.
It's interesting because I think it started many years ago. And but it's interesting. I mean, it's funny how we look at time. I remember feeling the call from Bridget, um, gosh, so many years ago when I didn't even know what that meant. But it all called me, it called me. I did not find it, right? It spoke to me. I have I think I'm like 55% Irish. I have Irish ancestry, and I definitely feel there's a connection within that. And then I learned about Bridget, and I started connecting, um and made a you know trek to Ireland to go to one of Bridget's wells and just really connect with that energy. And it was a slow moving process of tapping into that Celtic ancestry and part of me that was calling me into connecting more with the land. So by connecting with land here and changing up my whole way of being, it felt like an honoring of this part of me, this priestess, lineage that's in there, was waiting to be drawn out of me, and
That's
yeah,
so
so
beautiful. To hear that thread and like how you've had this deep connection with Bridget, not even knowing who she was, but just like that ability to connect. And may I just say, like, I think most Irish people, if they did their chart, aren't even that 55%, like that's a lot. And so knowing the land here and just how it does call, but how deep it runs, and when you have that calling, just how profoundly powerful that can be. So I love that you're like, you had this deep connection. You came over here, you connected with Bridget, the sacred waters, the flame. But then it was like, okay, now I have this, and you always have had this connection to the land, and now I'm going to create it in where I am now. It's because what part of the country is your beautiful land that you're living in?
Yeah, so I'm in Tennessee,
Yeah,
so, um, kind of in the southeast,
yeah,
section of the US, and, yeah, I mean, it's just feeling in I guess part of it is, like, this might not have been the house I chose if I had written everything out on a piece of paper, kind of like if you're choosing a mate, "This is what I think I want. This is what God wants for me to have," Okay. And feeling into that connection, and I can feel these parallels and people that have come into my life, and through the upheaval of the renovations and things I've endured this past year, and as part of the priest's path, I really stepped into not only the mythology of Bridget, but of the Morrigan, which was intense, and an allowing of destruction, allowing things to decompose, allowing what needs to go from my life to go. And that definitely challenged me in a lot of ways, but now there's a clearing, now the path is opening up, but I had to really learn to surrender and let go. And I did not know how to do that until things kind of started falling apart, and things needed to fall apart to fall into place. As cliche as that may sound, it's absolutely truth. And when we can allow ourselves to be okay with things being in chaos and being a mess, and see that that is part of even feng shui, right?
oh,
Everything is
absolutely.
always perfect. These
Yeah,
things need to
absolutely.
come up to surface. And I love that. And I love that through the priestess, how it marries those together to be able to help people in the state of chaos and mess, because that's part of life. And if we really want to work with energy and we really want to move energy, you got to go into the crevices of the creepy crawly places. You got to go in the attic, and you
They
got to like
they're like, if you want to
do
see the
those.
shadow aspect, go to that drawer or that room in your house, that has, that dumping ground, or the one that just gets everything stuck in, and that will represent the lowest level of consciousness within. Actually, we all have the shadow, the dark. We all have the new moon, the full moon. We all have the winter solstice, the summer solstice. Like, and it's like the embodiment and the integration. And I love that, because in order to create, there has to be the death in order to have the rebirth. There has to be the breakdown too for that new creation. There has to be the letting go in order to make space. And I love how eloquently you put that, because, you know, yeah, it's like it can be scary going into that, but it's like, well, otherwise you're just going to stay stuck in what is. So it's really up to you if you're willing to go through the tunnel to come out on the other side. And you
Right.
said yes.
Yeah.
And I've said
Well,
yes a lot of times. I keep saying yes.
say yes. Well, it's interesting, we people think of the goddess or the priestess as, oh, so eloquent all the time, and in that feminine energy, and uh but there are other aspects to that, going putting gloves on and going up in the attic and clearing out stuff that was left from this property, and finding a dead mouse, and all of these things are okay. I've got to find that strength, and I've got to do this. I've got to clear this space beyond just, the pretty parts, or the surface level. And I think people just, oh, well, stuff in the closet, or, oh, it's in the attic. We don't need to really go there. But that's exactly the place where you should
Oh,
go.
big time, big time. I had so much fun. I was cleaning out my attic there a couple of weeks ago, and I like have to go across these little, just the piece of wood, because otherwise you go down if you don't. And I found this box from like, 40 years ago, from, and the diaries and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, there was that much of somebody else's energy. It's like that weight above you. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Mhm,
just, so you have to go into the nooks and crannies. You have to go into the darkness. Like, and I mean, that's a daily practice if you want to stay
mhm.
conscious.
Yeah.
What anger came up? Oh, let's process and move through that. What is coming up, and what, like, just letting ourselves feel and move through things. And like, and I agree, there, like, it's not always just like this, because it's not about being that good girl. It's about the wild, the dark, the all of it,
All of it. All of it. And when you do that, you find treasures, right? So when I was cleaning stuff out of the attic, I found these really cute little butterflies, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna clear the energy on these, and I'm gonna hang these. They're beautiful, right?" So it's like sometimes you find a treasure, and that outer is the inner too, you know. Um, and I think too, learning to have fun. I remember as a child, I had nightmares, and I was scared of the dark.
Mm.
And it's funny because moving to this property, that little old subconscious belief that was playing popped in my mind. Ooh, am I going to be scared out there all alone? Because there are no street lights, and when night comes, it's very dark.
If
You
you,
walk
you got you
outside
and
and
the
you
stars, you and the stars.
see stars. It's like you're living inside of a planetarium, and you can't see your hand in front of your face. So I play this game with myself now where I will walk to the mailbox really late at night, and I can't see very well because it's so dark.
That sounds like a
And-
fun game.
but it's kind of fun. It's become a fun game. 'Cause I'm like, oh, I'm going to increase my night vision, my ability to see in the dark, and I think it's actually working. And it's also like a trust game, like a trust with the universe. Like I'm gonna, do this. And it's just it may seem silly, but I like doing little things
I
like
love
that
it.
because
And it
it
also says how courageous and brave you are. Like, if that was something you consciously knew was scary for you, but then just to put yourself in the middle of it, like,
Mhm.
and I love it because I'm up every morning usually around 4 and it's pitch dark, and I go out and the world is so quiet, and it is pitch dark except for the stars. Of course, on the full moon, it's illuminated, it's all bright, but that the rest of the month, and like, it's just exquisitely beautiful, and it's just a whole different energy, and a whole different level of consciousness within ourselves all around us. So I think you're really, really brave, and you're really amazing. Like, pulling up your sleeves and getting into the attic and going out in the pitch dark, and just, like, all that you're doing, and I just see it there picking up the branches and fixing the fence when the wind blows it down. And I agree with you, the wind, it just like just blows it all away, just blows it all away. And I mean, you can just feel the deep relationship you have cultivated now with the home, with the land. And then I know at one stage, I'm not sure if it's still on the radar, but you shared with me that maybe you might start hosting some of your circles there, women's circles. Is that something that you've been doing?
I have not yet, just because I've had some delays in some of my construction that have kind of left a
Oh,
mud pit in my backyard. But that is as winter, continues. Hopefully by spring, I'm going to have that fixed and working again. And I definitely am playing with how exactly I want to bring that into being, but definitely connecting with like-minded soul sisters here to light things up under the moon, and step into our sovereignty, and enjoy what the land brings in that regard.
so beautiful. I can't wait to hear all about it when in divine timing.
Divine timing,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So would you like to share with us now, if there is any practices from the Divine Woman, creating altars, rituals, connecting with the goddesses, like, are there any practices that you use regularly and just practices that you use that you'd like to share with us in general that really help you stay in balance and it's like that's self-care practice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very inconsistent, meaning I trust in that day what I'm kind of called to do. And sometimes I always have kind of an altar, and definitely I've found myself working more with the natural elements of outside. Like I have a, holly tree, and I picked up red berries, and kind of just allowing things to naturally call themselves to me to bring in and sit with that energy, because it's helping me connect more with my own surroundings. And so that's one aspect of daily practice. Also, just really working with, sometimes I just open sacred space, like to start my entire day. I've found just really starting the day with prayer, meditation, intention, even if it's 2 minutes. I used to get so caught up in thinking, oh, I've got to do 20-minute practice, and then I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And I don't do that anymore. I really go with the flow of how my body's feeling, what I have going on. If I have a lot going on, I kind of force myself to take that breath and maybe even be in more stillness, because it's more of a challenge. It's more needed versus days where I have more flow and flexibility. And I know in the middle of the day, I can go and plant my feet on the earth. And I never wear shoes anymore. That's become like
I love that.
this thing. I just walk around barefoot.
Earth goddess.
Yeah, it's just really, um, like right now, it's saying there's a lot of construction and things are a bit muddy. And I just plowed out there in my bare feet and got all muddy. And,
I love
it's just, life is a ritual.
it.
And I think that's what I learned in a lot of ways through the program with you. Just, life is a ritual, and we can make it enriching and joyful and meaningful, making a cup of tea or coffee, or
Love that.
how we go about taking a shower, and how we, just everything, and tapping into that magic and that intuition, and just really bringing awareness to those little things, really, uh, bring more peace, I think, for
Yeah,
me.
I love that. And it really what you're describing is just this deep listening to self, to spirit, to flow, to the energy, and that real divine feminine, I'm not going to force it has to be this practice and then that practice and that, because that's so rigid and that just is not what the purpose of it is, just like, okay,
Right.
I feel like I need to move my body. Okay, that's dance. And oh, I want to use my voice, or, I don't have as much space. So actually, it's the stillness, the quiet. And I love that. It's just that listening, and it's nothing rigid. It's just this. And then you have all these beautiful tools now, and you're just like, okay, what tool is speaking to me today? And it doesn't even think like it doesn't feel like it's a thinking thing; it's a feeling. And I love that. It's just the berries from the holly and creating your own. And I love that. It's just, it's not like this is my spiritual practice, is what I'm hearing from you. You're just saying it's just a way of being. It's just who you are. And it's just the listening, and it's just that deep connection. And then if something happens that creates that disconnect, which it does in all our lives, it's just like, oh, let me just connect back in and just let that flow again. So I love it. Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, I have all the tools in the toolbox if I want to focus on, a certain spiritual practice or manifestation, or something like that. I journal. I definitely burn a lot. I
Burn it. The fire element.
I burn a lot. I burned my vision board a couple of weeks ago, which was, wow, very powerful because,
Tell us about that.
well, so I've been really working on letting go, and
Mm,
I just started realizing, okay, we sometimes when we create a vision board or we write out or journal what we want, there's resistance around it,
yeah.
right? Or there's too much specificity. Like we think, oh, yes, we want to be clear with what we want, but then we get so dialed into it being just like that that we limit ourselves
Big
from
time. Yeah. Yeah.
what's possible. So I was like just sitting there looking at my vision board, which is was like my favorite one I've ever done. So beautiful. I loved it so much. And I just had this inner knowing. Sometimes we have to let go of what we love. We
Woo!
have
I got chills.
we have to let go. And just I encourage people to try that. Think about it. Think about how it would feel to let go of something that you want or love. It's uncomfortable. And you kind of feel, oh God, like, oh, this is not. But I knew because I had that feeling, I knew I had to do it. So I went outside and I had a couple other things in my little burn pile and my big vision board out there, put it front and center, and I lit it up. And it just I could just feel I felt sick in my stomach, like this I could just feel the energy, just all that resistance kind of like, having to move through my body. And as it was burning, I look over and the most majestic crane flies down on
Oh,
my
amazing.
and it
That's
was
amazing. I
took
mean, the
my
praise
breath
and
away.
our the goddess. I love those. So
Yeah.
amazing. That's incredible. And it's like it was an offering for the land, turned back into ashes, went back into the land. And it's already in creation. Doesn't matter if the board is sitting on the wall or not. You created
Right.
it, moved through you, and then like fire is an activator as well, anyway. So, it was like that activation, but also the surrender and the release. And I get it. I did that recently. Well, not recently, but last year when I created a board, and it felt really good when I created it. And then it was just like, yeah, it's just time to release this because it can be quite restrictive. And I think, when it comes to, I'm not really the word manifesting because that really relates to something outside of you, but aligning, just aligning. It's more just the feeling, isn't it? Versus
Mhm.
this specific thing or that exact. It's just like this
Right.
feeling, freedom and joy and expansion and love and vibrant health and good energy. And it's just like that's that and full acceptance of that's it. And then it's just okay, spirit, you got this now, right?
Right.
We'll co-create here together.
And I think too, in your full sovereignty, you realize in that moment, just being alive is everything I need, right? Like I have everything I need. And that crane coming to see me in that moment was confirmation of that. And that just let go. We hold on so tight to things in our lives, and you know, whether it's beliefs or stuff or you know,
People or things or
people or things or how we think we should be or shouldn't be. And true transformation is just saying, I don't have to subscribe to any
absolutely.
of
And I love that because you're talking about let go, and I love that, like let go, let God. I mean, it's let Goddess, let go, let God, and it's just, and then it's just my practice every day is like tuning in, connecting, let myself feel and process whatever I need to, and then just that deep connection below, above my heart, and then it's just at the end, it's just like okay, sure, okay, spirit, like let me be a vessel, where to go, what to say, what, who to go, just guide me. You know,
Mhm.
so it's, I think the more the surrender, but it's also knowing ourselves and knowing our truth, which is,
Yeah.
and being grounded in this body and this earth and,
Mhm.
and having that connection too. It's like below and above and everywhere in between.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like because we're the bridge in essence. limits,
Yeah.
and when we know ourselves and we allow ourselves to go through this process, like in the priestess path, where we look at the uncomfortable things, we look at the ugly, the good, bad, and the ugly, then we can hear spirit through our body more.
Mm.
I can feel the nuance in my body of if I'm going the right way or the wrong way. But in order to hear the subtleties that sometimes don't shout at us, it takes a practice, because I don't want to get to the place where my body has to scream at me. Because if I'm already really listening, and calming my nervous system, and working with it instead of against it, then I can be with it in every moment as a guide. Um, and I think, put planting your feet on the earth is so important, and really allowing that energy to guide, from an inner knowing, from that sovereign place of I know, I know, just knowing.
And I love that. I love imagine you visually you on your land, barefoot and just that deep connection with the trees and the soil and the sun and the stars and everything. So grateful for you sharing your wisdom and your experiences and your journey with us today. And so if there was three last tips that you'd like to share with us in closing, what would those be to just really invite people to be in their truth? What would they
I
be?
think, gosh, three things. One, letting things be what they are. Um, sometimes we feel disappointed in whatever. And the old saying, if it's meant to be, it will be. I think when we can just really trust in that some things are not for us, it releases us from this bind that we think is what is best for us. And instead we can trust source. So I think, kind of just fully trusting is can be very challenging, especially when things don't go so great, but it that is just really pivoting you onto the right path. Um, Two, I think, bringing awareness to to your day, to your life. So many times in the past, I can see how I just went through the motions of the day without really thinking about, you
Yeah.
know, I'm going to really savor this cup of tea, and I'm going to just how we really move through the day. We all do that. We all get caught up in, in the mundane, in the routine, and that can, we need routine. I'm not saying routine's bad, but when we can just really stop and bring awareness to things, I think we find so much more beauty and meaning in the mundane, in the routine, in the life that we're living wherever we're at. And this can be with your home, in how you're interacting with your space, with your business, with others. Um, so yeah, I think awareness.
I love
So
that. I
is,
love
is
that. And I just have to add because I have my herbs that I take every morning. And I think there's been a couple mornings where I went take them, and then I'm like, did I take them or not? I can't remember. Do you know? And like that's just so unconscious. And so the last couple of days I've just been like just breathing and like talking to these beautiful plants that are providing this nourishment and just like, I love you, nettles. Thank you. Like I love, all these beautiful herbs, and then just mindfully and then just noticing how they feel as they go down my throat into my body. And it's just like, that felt so much better than not being able to remember if I took them or not. And like, I mean, I know we can't be like that 24/7, but like this
right.
conversation, like to be present with you, and to hear and listen, really, really listen to what you're saying. And when the kids come in and wanting to hear about it, like being present. I mean, I think that's like just one of the greatest gifts. And it's free for all of us. It's just slowing down and taking the breath. And I love that. I love that. So I'm right there with your sister. Right there with you.
Yeah, and then I guess a third thing is to just, you know, be in a state of appreciation, I mean, we hear that a lot these days, but I think so often we overlook little things that are not little things after all. I mean, just if I'm connecting with my animals, like gosh, they bring so much wisdom in my life and joy and beauty. And I'm so thankful. And I let them know that. And we all have so much that we can find appreciation in, whether it's people that we share our life with or, being healthy, having the simplicity of just being. And also finding that appreciation and gratitude for the hard times, like what I was sharing about this year that I've gone through. When you're in it, it's really difficult to just be like, thank you for this absolute terrorizing event.
Oh,
But but if you can't do that, you can start to see what it's gifting you as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, thank you for sharing just this beautiful wisdom. And I could just keep chatting for hours. Like I want to know more about the land, more about the house, all of this. But thank you so much for sharing. There's just so much to take from this and you've shared your journey so intimately with us. So thank you, my love.
Thank you so much, Amanda. It's just always a pleasure to spend time with you, and I'm very grateful to be here.
Me too, my love. Thank you. And thank you to everybody listening.